Hi there. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast with me, Russell Davis. This week we're looking at the subject of stress. Stress is so common and on the increase. Often in our life there are situations that feel very stressful and we feel very powerless to do anything about it. We can feel trapped. It can create a sense of anxiety. In this episode, we'll begin to dissect the source of stress, to have a look at the root cause of stress, to begin to see what we can do about it, to feel equipped and resourced to do whatever life throws at us. So let's uncover the true source of stress to point you back in the right direction, to feel resourced and equipped. It's interesting when you look at different aspects of society and science and the world. There have often been these fundamental shifts in our understanding. We used to think the sun revolved around the earth. It really looks like the sun is moving when the sun comes up or the sun goes down. When you use the phrase, the sun goes up and the sun goes down, but of course the sun's not moving. It's the earth that's moving. We used to think illness was caused by smells. These things in the air called miasmas. Hence, times of the plague, they carried posies of flowers around to keep away bad smells. They thought they'd keep them from getting the plague. Hence the children's nursery rhyme, a ring of roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. And doctors who began to start first realised perhaps this wasn't the case were really quite discredited because it was against popular opinion. There was a lack of a scientific understanding of it. This was pre-microscopes, when we could really see things like germs and bacteria. But the forming of the germ theory has completely transformed our understanding of physical health. Mortality rates are completely different. Pre-germ theory to post-germ theory, we've got penicillin. Semmelweis was a Hungarian doctor working in Vienna, and he was one of the first doctors to start questioning the idea of miasmas and thinking maybe there's something that we carry on us. Back then, doctors were like mechanics. They work on one body, they move to another body without changing their aprons or instruments or washing their hands. They could deliver a baby, then go and do something different, or do an autopsy, then go and deliver a baby. It's a really interesting story because in the hospital Semmelweis ran with a colleague, there are 2 wards where women had babies. Childbed fever was very common back then. A high percentage of women died in childbirth due to childbed fever. One of the wards was run by nurses. The other was run by doctors, himself and his colleague. But the childbed fever rates in the ward run by the nurses was far, far lower than the one by the doctors. He really wondered why that was the case. He was curious about that. And interestingly, his colleague died quite suddenly, and when he did the autopsy, he realised he died of a fever, and he found this nick on his colleague's hand, and he surmised that it was a scalpel nick. He caught himself with his own scalpel. So he thought there must be something in the blood on the scalpel, on the instruments, the hands, the apron. They're moving from one person to another, and maybe that's why they have a higher childbed fever rate in their ward than the nurses, because they don't often have that, don't obviously do that, don't do operations and don't have blood on their hands like the doctors do. So he asked the rest of the doctors in the hospital to change their instruments, change their apron, wash their hands between patients. And despite the childbed fever rates and the women in childbirth dying, dropping dramatically to be alongside the same as the ward of the nurses, He wasn't taken seriously because it was against their teaching in medical school. And unfortunately, he was basically struck off, and sadly, he went mad and was institutionalized, and he died of wounds that got gangrene from wounds, and they suspect because he was beaten in the institution he was put in. And sadly, people listened to him, he wouldn't have lost his own life. But there were other doctors around that time coming to the same kind of conclusions, and over time, obviously, germ theory was formed, and it completely transformed our understanding of physical health. It's something about our mental health. I think there's another transformation coming when people begin to realize that what we think creates stress and anxiety is not what we think it is. It's like miasmas in the air. Sometimes we think stress is caused by certain situations or people, as if it gives us stress particles that we have to avoid those situations to avoid the stress. If we think that is the case, that our stress is caused by these certain situations or people that give off these stress particles, we have two options. One is, to avoid the situations, and that's not always possible. Or we have to manage the symptoms, manage the effects of the stress. But what if that's not the cause of stress? What if nothing makes us feel anything? It's our thinking creates our experience. It's our perception of the situation creates our experience of it, nothing else. It's not the situation itself. Emergency service crew go to a traumatic scene in an accident, and some of them get signed off with PTSD for 6 months, and some of them get McDonald's on the way home. They have different experiences of the same circumstances. It was their thinking created their experience. For whatever reason, some would be able to let it go, some couldn't. It was their thinking created their experience, not the circumstances. And it's true for us in any situation. Our feelings, our experiences comes from our thinking about it, not the situation. It's the story we tell ourselves. The meaning we attribute to situations creates our experience. Our mind is a projector, projecting our perception of life onto a screen in our mind. And that creates our feelings. Our feelings are these thoughts, these images, this imagination that's come alive into our nervous system. That's what creates our experience. That's what creates our stress, not the situation. It doesn't mean we're immune to stress, but the more we see where it comes from, we can stop looking in the wrong direction for the answer. If we think it's the circumstances, then we think our experience can't change until the circumstances change, and sometimes we have no control over those circumstances, so we feel trapped. The stress kind of gets locked in. We feel powerless. We have no control, and so the snowball of stress and anxiety and worry just gathers pace. The more we see it's our thinking in this moment, that creates a sense of possibility because our mindset can change from moment to moment. When we see it's our thinking creating the experience, we stop chasing our tail, looking for a solution in the outside world. When our mind clears, in the moments of quiet, we have more sense of a possibility, clarity, perspective. Solutions come to us. When we stop trying to fix things, we stop looking in the wrong direction, we have an opportunity for mind to settle, for clarity to come, perspective to come. We feel more empowered. We don't feel so trapped. We don't tie ourselves into knots. So what if we can begin to see our fears, our worries, our stresses, our habitual thinking, not the circumstances. We have a habit of looking at those circumstances through that filter, through that lens. And often what's behind the lens is a judgment of ourselves, limiting thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and life, that's what shapes our lens we look at life through. That shapes the flavour of the movie playing out in our head, our perception of a situation, the meaning we attach to the circumstances. And they're plausible, they're realistic, but they're still fantasy. They're still fantasy. We live in a world of imagination all the time. The more we see that, it gives us a sense of possibility to see something different. It gives a sense of possibility to find solutions. We feel less trapped, we feel less powerless. So what if stress is not caused by circumstances? These circumstances, these people don't give off stress particles. It only works one way, inside out. Our human experience only works one way, inside out. Inside out. In my experience, the more we see that, the more our mind can begin to settle. The more we feel empowered, resourced, equipped. I'm loving it.